Hello, here I review movies and today's film is MaXXXine. It's a thriller horror about an aspiring actress named Maxine that takes place in Hollywood in 1985. Just as she gets her big break, a psychotic killer threatens to reveal her dark past. Ty West wrote and directed the film, which stars Mia Goth as Maxine, Giancarlo Esposito as Teddy Knight, and Kevin Bacon as John Labatt. To begin, I want to say this film is definitely R-rated material, so if you're bothered by nudity, sex, extreme violence, or slasher-style gore, you should probably give this film a pass. For positives, MaXXXine comes with a coherent story, a cast that is trying their damnedest to make it work, a decent visual journey, and a good soundtrack. The story is about a young woman who is desperate to achieve her goals. When a killer tries to get in the way and murders a few of the people around her, Maxine puts her dukes up and gets ready to rumble. They do a good job of keeping the mystery around who the killer is and how things are going to play out. It leads to a tense film in which you're constantly waiting for the next big attack. The attacks are slasher-style scenes in which the victim is ripped apart. They use grotesque-looking makeup and prop work to create a gory display. The general cast is filled with people playing old-timey stereotypes. You have Mia Goth playing an overconfident young woman with a bit of a mean streak and a dark past. Then there's Giancarlo Esposito playing her fast-talking agent. Kevin Bacon is the sleazy private eye with a bit of southern charm. Lastly, you have Moses Sumney playing her loyal friend and confidant. Together, they make a crime drama with a seedy underbelly. You even get a few great moments out of Bacon, Bobby Cannavale as the detective, and Mia Goth. Little scenes where they got to say a few good lines or put on an emotional display. The visual journey is set in Hollywood in the 80s and makes use of a lot of simple locations and studio sets. It paints a dark image of the world and gets the story across in an interesting way most of the time. The characters are dressed like they jumped out of the pages of a pulp magazine, and the locations tend to be grimy, like Sin City with color. The journey is a mixture of tense conversations between Maxine and the other characters, and slasher horror moments where the killer strikes. They also threw in a few historical movie sets like the Bates Motel and the house from Psycho. It was kind of interesting seeing them from the outside and with studio surroundings. Behind the visual journey is a soundtrack made from blues, rock and roll, and a bit of grunge. It gives the film an old-school punk sound, and there are instrumentals for the action moments. The soundtrack does a good job of adding flavor to the film and works well with the story to create some great mashups. My favorite moments were Maxine finding the third body and her escape from Labatt on the studio lot. The former song brought out a feeling of tragedy and heartbreak that went really well with Mia Goth's emotional outburst, and the latter song did a great job of hyping up the action. On the negative side, the film's story just isn't exciting. The big slasher kills aren't nearly as good as they needed to be, and for some reason they chose to ruin the biggest performance in the film with bad lighting. The story isn't exciting because they spent a lot of time repeating lame moments, getting sidetracked with useless information, and developing characters that really didn't matter in the long run. In the end, you're left with a confusing story that's full of holes and wondering why Maxine wasn't a bigger part of it. This is a bit spoilery, but at two different points they had Maxine defend herself. Then, after that, she only ever runs away or cries until everyone is defeated. It's boring, and I was expecting a lot more from her character. They also spent way too much time with the director character doing that bit about how she's a visionary and needs someone who will fight for her dream. The film ruined the big reveal, too. When the killer tells Maxine who they are and why they did it, they have them chase Maxine down a hallway and deliver the monologue while they're passing through the shadows between windows. Half of the speech is delivered in complete darkness without being able to see the expressions on their face, and the other half kind of looks like freeze frame moments. The entire scene was a bizarre decision and left me baffled. They also managed to cut all of the actors' performances down enough that no one really stands out. Esposito, Cannavale, Goth, and the villain all get big moments, but only one or two. Goth comes the closest, but it's like they wait until she's giving them something real to cut away. Every time Maxine is crying or making a speech, they cut to a wide or to another character. It's like the director is terrified of spending more than a moment on the actors' faces. Finally, the kills just weren't impactful enough to stand out. The film is obviously trying to look like a B-grade horror with its kills, but they only showed one of them on screen and the rest were all implied. Basically, they showed us a bunch of props and didn't have to come up with too much makeup or effects. It's disappointing because usually in slashers they'd have blood spraying and people dying in hyper-gory ways while they scream endlessly. There's not much of that here. Personally, I thought the film had a lot of potential, but I was disappointed at the end. The film definitely has good moments in it, and the atmosphere and flavor are pretty cool. The cast is trying to make the pulp stereotypes work too, but there just wasn't enough actual content. If you like shallow films that are just trying to hit a bit of atmosphere and tell a simple tale, this might be up your alley. Otherwise, give it a pass. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 5 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.